Hello and welcome to the Resilience Catalyst Show. My name is Joyce Odidison, and I'm so excited that you've joined me here today, this episode of the Resilience Catalyst Show. And I'm so excited that you're here. Now, why do we need a Resilience Catalyst Show? And let me tell you a bit about the whole concept of the resilience catalyst because, as you know, many of us are called to do things in so many different times and spaces. The reality is, this week I want to invite you a different type of leadership practice. Not one more meeting, not another productivity hack, but just to be a quiet audit of your resilience system, especially the parts you may have sidelined. So I want you to ask yourself, who is in my life that I have stopped being emotionally present with, even unintentionally? What conversations have I postponed in the name of busyness? I know I was guilty of that. What part of me, my joy, my purpose, my peace, feels undernourished? Because the true essence of resilience is built through our sacrifice. It isn't built through overwork and sacrifice, rather. It's built through intentional investment, especially in the relationships and the dimensions we can't afford to lose because those are really important to us. And so tonight, you need to do an overhaul of your life tonight. Just reach out, reconnect, recommit. And if you want a framework to guide your journey, download the Resilience System Scan here. Go check the resilience diagnostic, and it will give you our full well-being with resilience and diagnostic assessment. Will give you a real opportunity to scan how well you are doing in that whole resilience ecosystem so you can learn more about your resilience. Welcome everyone, Joyce Odidison here. And this morning, as I said, we have a guest with us. We have Pamela Stambaugh is the founder of Accountability Pays. It is the organization that helps leaders to show up with accountability. And she's also an ICF, a certified coach. We have very much in common. So this is going to be an amazing conversation as we delve into some of the challenges that leaders face and teams face in the workplace. Because the reality is, if we had perfect leaders, which we never will, we wouldn't have team issues. So we are always going to work at refining this process and making it better. So let's talk about how do leaders lead team effectively so they can maintain resilience in the workplace. Pamela, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joyce. Yes, resilience is a big deal, isn't it? It's not it's not a light thing at all. Do you want me to just tackle that question right there?
Absolutely. Let's talk more about resilience. This is something,
Let's talk about resilience.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Somebody said, Joyce, you've taken resilience from being abstract and making it concrete. We have to do that. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, well, how do they do that, right? So I say that there's mindfulness, which is you think about how you're showing up. There's heartfulness, which is you bring your heart to the work. And then there's self care that has you take care of yourself so that you are able to be present, or what I call accountable, awake, and aware. And if you're doing those things, if you're conscious, if you take the time to invest in yourself, then that investment will show up when you show up for your people. And that helps a lot with the resilience, right? I mean, because you've got the resilience has a lot to do with staying power.
Mm-hmm.
It has a lot to do with can you persist even when it's hard? Can you come back from things that happen that you don't have any control over, but they impact you? Right. So what are we able to manage ourselves as ourselves, right? And then that's where we're responsible first. And if we're responsible there, then we'll be responsible and we'll be demonstrating and we'll be an example of what that looks like for our people. And they'll know it. They'll know it by how you show up.
That is so very true. Oh, when I listen to you talk about that piece, we live and breathe resilience here, and we know it's so much more expansive. I actually my work we work on the currency of resilience model, and that framework teaches us that resilience is a currency that we can spend. We spend it all the time. We just don't know.
Yeah.
We just don't know. We're unaware of how much we can do with resilience, how we can build it, how we can restore it, how we can store it and save it and exchange it. And I think this is a conversation that is so important in the leadership and team arena, because so often when I show up as a conflict analyst, teams are telling me, well, it's my leader. Leaders are telling me, it's my team. Why can't those people just do their work? Why do I have to babysit them? And then the teams are saying, it's the leader. We don't have proper leadership. We don't have structures. They don't keep their word. And I know you're the accountability expert. So let's delve into the accountability factor.
Sure. Well, so accountable is being responsible as a leader for how you show up. I like to distinguish a manager is someone who's given responsibility to produce results through people. And
Hmm.
then a leader is someone that shows up beyond that as somebody that those people would follow to the moon and back by how they show up.
Hmm.
So when you talk about real leadership, that's a beingness. That's how do I show up? Am I providing the right resources? Am I serving my people? Am I making sure they're not burning out? Am I giving them what they need to do what they need to do? And that's on me. So we always say culture like water rolls downhill. And
Hmm.
in any team, it's that leader. Now, that may not be the same person who can provide that cultural umbrella from the top, right? So sometimes you've got divisions and departments that are trying hard to provide something in the way of valuable environment when they don't have all of the resources themselves to share, or they're not saying everything that's happening up above to protect their people, and their people don't know that, right? So just so much when you say it's all, people show up at work, and we will be people, and we're not perfect. People are by nature the human condition, not the perfect condition. That's how I say it. Right.
Absolutely. This is a job that will never get done. I have leaders saying to me sometimes, Joyce, I feel like I'm babysitting. I don't feel like I'm working with adults. And I'm like, hello, that is part of leadership, because humans have brains and our brains are taking us in different direction. And the hardest thing to do actually is to lead people. And we don't realize, I think most people don't realize how difficult leadership is, and how much you need to have developed your own self mastery
Yes.
in order for you to lead others.
Yes. Yes. And one of the focus areas that I'm taking on is distinguishing between employee engagement. Now, Gallup has measured that for years and years. And what we're seeing in a quarter of a century of research is that disengagement hovers at 70% all the time, a little more, a little less, but that's where it
Mhm,
hangs. So what that means is you've only got 30 people in a workplace on average who are really fully engaged.
mhm,
But you could have engagement at a compliance level, right? They come in, they do their work, they go home, and they
mhm,
don't really want to engage any further than that.
mhm,
I want to pull on discretionary effort. What is that? Well, discretionary effort, discretionary is what you have over and above what's required.
mhm, mhm,
So I'm pulling on what do we as leaders have to provide in order to encourage discretionary effort? Well, there are four things. It's not something I made up, but it's trust in reciprocity. So let's say it's at my discretion that here's a new person, we're remote, they haven't been given the informal way we do things around here that make things work. So I'm going to take it upon myself
Mhm.
to provide that new person with some understanding of what they need to work on. So that's one of four things: trust and reciprocity. I'm going to give that, whether I'm not being paid to do it, I've not been asked to do it, I just see the need and I fill it.
Mhm.
Another one is they want to know that their contribution matters, right? That it creates real value. And it's not more of stay late to do the nitpick stuff. No,
Mhm.
that's not discretionary effort. That's I'm being pulled on. And maybe that's some of what that is why people are disengaged, because they're being asked to do more than is reasonable, right? There's
Mhm.
that. But the
Yes.
perceived impact has to be there. And then a third one, Joyce, is psychological safety. They have to feel okay about taking that step. They don't need permission to try new tools, for example, that can help everybody. They
Mhm.
just want to. So they do, without feeling that, oh my gosh, I'm going to get in trouble because I tried something new that wasn't blessed
Mhm.
around here. And then the fourth thing is personal agency, meaning they have the autonomy to be able to contribute, right? They
Those are
get to
very
decide where to put their extra effort and make a difference because they think that they can. So that's what I'm playing with, Joyce.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's important. Those are the important factors. That's what really make the workplace go around. And
Yes.
in the 28 years that I've been in workplaces as a conflict analyst, and you've been there for decades as well, we see that these are not things that go away. They actually just changes as the generations change. And as we look, the challenges we had prior before COVID and the ones we have post COVID are the same. It's just that we have more complexities in
Yeah.
our society now, right?
Yeah. We have
So,
AI. We have da da da.
exactly. And
And
there is the fear of AI, and then there is the over reliance on AI. But there was always something. There was always people either doing much or not enough of anything. And this is just the next, we are in this kind of fourth industrial revolution right now, and AI is the thing, robotics is the thing. And there will be something else that comes up in the work because your society keeps changing, and all these changes will evolve and become part of our workplaces. What leaders need to understand, I think, is the ability to use resilience for adaptability so that they can quickly adapt, so they can be agile thinkers. Because one of the things that when I go into a conflict situation, it's usually that somebody has misunderstood somebody, has made assumptions, or somebody is being inflexible. And that can be very challenging when people become positional
yeah.
because, yeah, I'm holding on to my position, I'm right and you're wrong. And then you start having the teams, and you start having people aligning, and you have that alignment, and then we have a combustible situation and people are not able to do their work. So I love that you talk about psychological safety because it's such an important element for
Yeah.
someone to say, you know what, I think I overthought this, or I may be wrong, or I misunderstood this. The ability to be able to do that
Mhm.
in workplaces, in corporations,
Mhm.
over, because I do a lot of work in larger corporations and in government agencies and post-secondary institutions, and you find that in the smaller organizations, there isn't a lot of room to hide. But you can hide so well in the big organization, and
Yeah.
you can keep bouncing around with bad behavior and creating more
Mhm.
issues. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things you've seen. Of course, we never call our client's name, but we talk about some of the situations that continue to recur, and we see similar patterns as we go across the workplaces.
Yeah, I can speak to an experience that I had with a client, which was a client for 4 years, where I was doing the strategic planning, I was doing the executive coaching, and we had two people, one who occupied the CFO role, one who occupied the IT role, both important. at
Mm-hmm.
at odds, right? So I asked the CEO, could we bring in some values for the organization because we'd done the strategic plan, but we hadn't included values. And he said, show
Mm-hmm.
me the ROI on values and I'll let you do that. And I never won that conversation. I never won it. And finally, I said, I am out of here
Mm-hmm.
because there just was no way. You talk about the right wrong, right? I say we naturally have a tendency when we're thinking immaturely, right, wrong, good, bad. That's
Yeah.
not what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with immaturity when we're dealing with right, wrong, good,
Yes.
bad.
Yes. Yes.
Because at the end of the day, everybody has a responsibility to look on the other side and see the value and say, I get it. I see why you might take that position. It just doesn't help for this, that, and the other thing. So there's that. My baseline, Joyce, in this conversation is trusting and trustworthy, right? So trust. Now, if people that psychological safety isn't present, then you won't have trusting,
Trust.
and
Yeah.
and trustworthy is what that leader needs to be, right? That's the number one thing, is to be trustworthy. And then part of trustworthy is being trusting beyond trust but verify, right? I put you in this position, or I inherited you to do the job, and then here we are, we've got a problem. What is that? How can we kindly, thoughtfully peel it apart without the blame game?
Yes. So important. And I see it over and over again where there are two sides to it. I see managers who inherited a new director and they have the assumption of who, because stories follow, they've done their research, they've heard things, or they've liked doing things a certain way, and they have a culture and they have a pattern, and the new director comes in and says, oh, we're going to do this new thing, and then the conflict starts. Well, why does it have to change? And there is the push and the shove. And I often say to leaders when they approach me with those things, or if I'm working with the executive team, it's like nothing is static in the workplace. This is the workplace is supposed to be dynamic and change is supposed to be the norm. But I see so many people struggling against change in the workplace, which is a lot of the conflicts. And like you, when we're doing that conflict coaching or leadership or executive facilitated discussion, the resistance to change is so, and the bigger the organization, the more ridiculous it becomes. I was like, hello.
So I've got a filter on that based on what the Harrison assessment measures, which is paradoxes. And one of
Hmm.
them is exactly that. It's some people are highly flexible and they
Yes.
want change and they love change and they bring it on. And if they're a manager who's bringing in more change than those people who are rigidly organized can handle, that's where you're going to get the fingernails on the chalkboard, right?
Hmm.
Because they are, you're messing with my sandbox and I have it a certain way, and I line up my paper clips in this way and I do that right.
Hmm.
So the conflict comes from a very natural lack of the balance versatility, the both and opportunity to say I can be organized and
Hmm.
I can be flexible. And when that balance versatility is missing, that's where you get that knock knock knock.
It's
And
so true. So
yeah.
true. Because one of the things that we do with organizations is look at the resilience anchors. Because when we tell you that you need to be building resilience, but you don't have the baseline, so we put all these training on people. We bring all these training, and we're putting our leaders through this, but we're not starting with these baseline resilience anchors that gives them that foundation to understand the currency of resilience and how they can use it and what it sits on, the beliefs it sit on, and even
Mhm.
things like their own personal self-esteem, their mindset, their values. And you just talked earlier about values. But if you lack personal values, you're going to struggle with, oh, I think everybody have values, they just don't know what they are. Right, really. They show up in their behavior, they're just not conscious of what their values are. They have just haven't stated them. But when you're not aware of your values and you're not aligned with your values, it's harder to align with the corporate values because
Yes.
you don't know when the values clash and when to say this organization and my values and the organizational values no longer align. And that means I need to move on,
Hmm.
right? I don't need to destroy the organization. I just need to move on. That's where the peace comes in because we see the venom and the ugliness, and you don't have to destroy to move on. And the higher up people are in the organization, the more challenging that becomes for them
Hmm.
when they're dealing with those pieces. So have you seen those pieces in your work?
Oh, sure. It's the natural expression of not being tuned in to a bigger reality, a bigger realization of what's needed here. Yeah. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work to not know where you fit and where you don't fit. It does, to your point, Joyce, it does not work to not know what your values are and to realize it's you, it's not the organization, to not tune in to, oh, that's just me. So there's this whole thing of projection, right? And I see it in the workplace, and you know it very well, where I am so out of balance with myself that I couldn't even be responsible for something if you named it, because I'm not going to claim it, right? So I project it onto others, and
Mhm.
that's not going to get better without some healing work,
No.
because there is no resilience there. There's an attitude, there's a position, and that's where, in the conflict resolution work that you do, you got to be able to pull that apart and say, here's where you're standing, as if there isn't room for anybody else to stand anywhere else. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, too often I find almost, next to divorcing parties, family conflict, workplace conflict is the most combustible
Yeah.
because it ties in with people's sense of who they are. Most people
Yeah.
identify themselves based on the job they do. So
Yeah.
that's their identity. They have this professional identity that sometimes even overrule their own person identity. And this is where am I a mechanic? I'm a police officer. I'm a dentist. So that becomes their sole identity. And so they get drawn into these kinds of identity conflicts when they should be saying, I am a leader first.
Yeah.
I lead people, but who am I? And that is the piece that where the work needs to happen.
Yeah.
Who am I and what do I bring to the table? Because when you are asking leaders to lead and you're not feeding them, or they're not feeding filling up on the right things, then they don't have anything to offer. So they're not able to differentiate between the challenges of individuals and when it's their responsibility to say, I have leaders who, when I say, why don't you in employees struggle with performance review, leaders struggle with performance review. I say, well, why don't you ask your employees what they would like to see from you? Like, how can you serve them better? I said,
Mhm.
absolutely not. I would not ask that, Joyce. I do not. And it's like, why, if you are leading from heart, if you're a heart-centered leader, why is it so difficult to get feedback, to know how your leadership is, and why wouldn't you want to know? It is so
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 yeah,
sad.
so all of this is in the realm of what it takes to be a human being today in the
Yeah.
workplace. Yeah. So I have the 7 dimensions of team power that are stacked, and as I said, I baseline it on trusting and trustworthy, knowing that psychological safety is what provides the opportunity for any trust to show up whatsoever. And if you don't have that, you don't have the baseline in place.
You don't.
And then right after that is results orientation, because if you're leading a team, you have to have that results orientation. And then
Mhm.
what does it mean to be transparent? That's the stack number in the stack of things, the seven dimensions. The third dimension is transparency, right? And
Mhm.
there's a right amount of transparency, not too much. You know, I really study transparency because you can go overboard and overshare, and then people have to be responsible for things they don't understand or can't
Mhm.
impact, and that's a problem.
Mhm.
Perspective, what do you bring in terms of a perspective that people can align with? Are you all about something over here and not right? So there's that. And then the collaborative piece, how do you collaborate with people who you have responsibility for producing results through these people? And let's see, uh, so that same CEO who didn't want to do values, well, much of the damage that was going on culturally in the organization was because they didn't have alignment around values. And if you don't have that, you've got nothing, right?
Mhm.
And then innovation, well, if you aren't willing to change, then you can't innovate. And then you're going to lose, because that's where the world of work is building on itself, is in the innovation quadrant, or, you know, so just, and then being accountable for first of all, for being who you say you are. And if you can
Mhm.
do all of those seven things, then likely you'll be able as a team to produce great results. And
I
in
love.
there, in every step, is a resilience piece.
Yes. I love it. I love it. I think there's so much synergy in the work we do. We teach 9 dimensions. You teach 7. This is very, very good. And you know, the world needs more of us out there teaching these speeds and bringing different perspectives, because they're all important, and people learn differently and they learn from
Mm-hmm,
different teachers.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so I love our path of this crossing in this perspective. Tell me about your new assessment that you're doing, because we just launched our SaaS platform where
Ah,
organizations can come in and uncover some of these resilience risks for in their organization, so that they are alert. And I know assessments are so very important. Tell me about your new assessment you're launching, and how people can get in touch with it, or use it.
yes. Well, it is an organizational assessment. So, in other words, it's measuring at the senior executive level. It's a 360, or for the CEO, it's a 180, getting feedback on what others believe about the leadership. And again, everything I'm doing is based on that seven dimensions of team power. So it's
Mhm.
asking 3 questions in each of those seven dimensions, and then getting the self report, getting the peer report, and getting the direct report, and putting that
Mhm.
all in a document so that we can evaluate where are the organizational blind spots at the top.
Mhm.
Now that's organizational, right? And then there's also the Harrison assessment, which is looking at the blind spots in the paradox. We have 12 paradoxical pairs inside of 175 data points, traits and preferences and tendencies. So that's a robust look as well. Um,
Yes.
so between those two feedback loops, we've got a lot of information to say, here are the leaders that need coaching, here are some system breakdowns. But
Mhm.
also, because I'm interested to evaluate and support better discretionary effort and certainly engagement, then that's I begin to seed those conversations by saying what KPIs might relate to this dimension and what ROI shows up for you in this dimension, in each of those seven dimensions.
Yeah.
So, because you've got trusting and then trustworthy, that's one of the seven dimensions. It's really 8,
Mhm.
right? You've got a 1A and a 1B, because trusting is measured in one direction and trustworthy in the other direction.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So the leadership gap X-ray is relying on that framework and asking questions of direct reports and peer. And what they realize, look, peers don't have visibility into how somebody manages. Could that be one of the reasons that we don't know why we say we don't know why employee engagement is so consistently low? Well, I think it's because we don't have visibility, and so we're not holding people accountable at the level that we should. And that's what I'm poking into
Mm-hmm.
with the
Yes.
Leadership Gap X-ray.
Oh, that's exciting. That's exciting. So tell us about your new book coming out.
Well, sure, it's called Accountable, Awake, and Aware Leadership. You
Mm-hmm.
can't fix what you can't see. You can't improve what you don't measure.
Yes.
And
I
it's,
love it.
again, the framework is the 7 dimensions of team power. And it's
Yeah.
going to be a small book because the people you and I are dealing with on the leadership side don't have a lot of discretionary time. They may have
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
discretionary effort that they're putting in, but that's because they don't have the time.
Yes.
So I'm sensitive about that. I've also got 52 success accelerators plus action multipliers for time challenge leaders, which
Mm-hmm.
again takes on a weekly look at where do you need to be developing who you are. And
Mm-hmm.
I use the be do have model, right? Who you're being has an impact on what your team is doing, which has an impact on what the organization has at the end of the day.
So very true. Powerful. Well, we are just about wrapping up our time. If there's a leader looking out there and they're saying, it's really frustrated right now. I'm frustrating. I'm struggling. I don't know where to start. What would you say to that person?
I'll read the book.
Read the
Right?
book.
I mean, I would say here are the ground rules of that, right? Here are the ground rules of that. Certainly if they're struggling with the resilience piece, I know you're there. And if they're struggling with team productivity and performance, I've got, like you, I've got many, many years of executive coaching and strategic planning under my belt. But I bring in partners, Joyce. I don't do a lot of that direct work anymore. I give them the tools and say, you've got the relationship. You develop the relationship with that client. I'm still delivering the Leadership Gap X-ray because I really want to build to a book of case studies of that relationship between discretionary effort and
Mhm.
profitability. I know it's there, and I'm out to measure it.
Good. I can't wait to see that. This has been such an inspiring conversation. It's really great to speak with others in the field like you who have been at this for a while. We've seen so many different sides to the workplace and so many of the leadership challenges. I call it the underbelly of leadership
Yeah.
in
Yes,
our
that's
modern
good.
world.
I know.
And the stories could go on forever, but
Yes,
we will stop here. And I just want to thank you for making time to chat with me today, telling us about your new assessment and your new book coming up. I'm writing my eighth book too, and I'm trying to keep it small. I
I
do
hear
because
you.
it's so important. People don't have time anymore. Attending is one of the competencies, the resilience currencies we look at. People do not. We've lost the ability to pay attention, and
Yeah,
so it's we're living in a very fascinating world, and there are just
that's
so
it.
much. So many pieces of it we can take and analyze and grow. But I want to thank you for being here and for sharing your wisdom with us. And we'll hopefully have more conversations.
I love that. Thank you very much, Joyce. You're
You're
delightful.
very
Thank you.
welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.